Good afternoon. Welcome to the Confident Career Show. My name is Femi Yusoof. I'm delighted to welcome our guests here on the Confident Career Show. I'm here with Kate Gilbert, and also we have Joseph Quarcoo. We're here at CSEP Media Lab here in Croydon, and we are going to be talking about all matters related to careers. My career or my background is in careers consultancy. I work for university at Goldsmiths, University of London, where I have been for the last 3.5 years. I've worked in education, recruitment, probably for the last 10, 15 years. And I am excited about relaunching this show. And we've got some exciting announcements to make as well. So I'll save that for now. I would like to invite Kate Gilbert, our guest speaker.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You.
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do. And
Sure.
Yeah.
So now I'm a public speaking coach. I set up my own business about 10 years ago in this. But prior to that, I started my career as an actor. And I had a bit of a squiggly career, I would say. It's been very non-linear. I've been teaching, writing, performing, speaking as well. And all of that kind of knowledge and experience has culminated to where I am today, which is really teaching people how to be on stage, how to write scripts and how to deliver confidently, and also talking about communication as well.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And we're going to delve into all of that. And it's incredible, really, when you think about all those things that you've done, that's brought you to this point where you can now put it all together and actually help your clients, which we're going to obviously look into. Yeah. So we're now going to introduce our other guests. Joseph Quarcoo, who's our co-organizer here, is my partner in crime. And, so guys. Joseph,
so I'm Joseph, and I'm an applied social psychologist with stints in urban planning and creative advocacy. So that's a bit about me.
Fantastic. Okay. So we're going to kind of kick off now. It's just coming up to 7 minutes past. And obviously, I want to welcome our guest speaker. Kate is someone who I think we've probably known you now for about a year. And then
I think so.
Yeah, it's coming up to a year now. And obviously met at Goldsmiths as well.
Yes,
you met. Right. You came to an event.
Yeah.
Do you actually remember? I think
I do.
You do remember, yeah. So met at Goldsmiths, and you've been a couple of times, I think. I think certainly we've had opportunities to meet, because there was another event we had hosted which you attended as well. Yes. So you've been very supportive in terms of supporting students, and obviously we've seen your work on social media, especially LinkedIn, where you're obviously you're quite popular, and use that platform for showcasing your work in the community.
Yeah.
So this show, it's all about, what is it about, the Confident Career Show? It's all about trying to support people. I mean, I was listening to Bloomberg for my sins. One of the things, my background is also financial, so I kind of follow what goes on in the markets. It's very important, I feel, because it gives you a sense of what's happening in industry. So I was listening to one of the guest people on this podcast. Well, it's almost like a podcast, really. But we're in a podcast studio here in Croydon, and his name is Anthony Jenkins, and he's a former CEO at Barclays, the kind of people that you probably work with, at the executive level. And he was saying how the UK, the challenge with the UK right now is confidence. And this whole subject around productivity and the fact that we're not, obviously, I think the word he actually used was a bit more brutal. He said it's actually broken and all of that. We hear this term a lot, don't we? Mm-hmm. So obviously we're focused around careers, and I think and that's why we've called it the Confident Career Show. But to get to that confidence, there's a journey that people have to have, right, to get there.
Yeah.
And I'm very keen to hear your journey, Kate, because, in terms of I haven't done it justice, but you support business executives, SME business leaders, university students, obviously. Yeah. You're a TEDx coach.
Yeah.
And public speaking coach, obviously, and obviously you have an acting background. So there's a lot packed into that. So I would just like to explore how, what was the journey for you? How did you get into public speaking?
It's not something I thought I would ever get into. It's when I left university, I didn't even know that could be a career. It's not anything I was kind of going for. My dream was to absolutely be an actor, and I remember a teacher at school getting us all together in our final year and saying, 2% of you are actually going to make it in the industry. Wow. And I was like, that's fine, whatever, it's going to be me. And I did have an acting career, I'd say, for 10 to 15 years. I never became really famous. I wasn't in Hollywood, but I was a jobbing actor. So I did make a living from it, although it wasn't incredible. And I think through that journey, because acting is so sporadic sometimes and you have to have a second job. So yeah, from hearing this 2% statistic, I decided that was still going to be me. I had so much drive. I had so much passion for what I was doing. And so I went into acting. But alongside that, I found I needed to get extra jobs. And one that I started in was in education. I became a drama teacher in one of the most difficult schools in England at the time. It's not around anymore. But that's really where I learned a lot about stage presence, because it was so hard to get their attention. They were absolutely wild. And I had to find every resource I could to get their attention, to learn how to teach when I had no PGCE. So I started there with the teaching, and then I went into writing. I was already doing performance poetry, and I was doing that on the circuit in Manchester where I lived at the time. I was doing many, many performances. And from doing those, I was asked if I would host one of the nights. And my philosophy has always been to say yes, even if I was scared, even if I didn't know how to do it or I hadn't done it yet. I would say yes, and I would throw myself into it, and I would just figure out how to do it through that process. So my first night hosting a show was not amazing, but I did have somebody ask me if I'd go and host a show to an audience of 200 people. And I was terrified to do that one, I'll be honest, I was. But I managed to do it, I got through it, and I learned a lot through doing that. And over the years, I wrote plays, I produced them, I put them on. I moved to London to be an actor because I thought I'd have more chance. I didn't have more chance. It was actually harder than it was in Manchester, and nobody knew who I was at that point. I set up a theatre company there with a couple of friends, and I met lots of directors, and we put on short plays, thinking that I would meet a director and they would put me in something and it would all work out, and it actually didn't. So then I found public speaking teaching in a school, and after working with hundreds of young people for about 3 years, I then left and I set up my own business as a public speaking coach, and that was about 8-10 years ago.
Wow.
So it's been a squiggly path, but I think everything that I learnt on that journey and the way, and just saying yes to things that came to my doorstep, has kind of culminated in all the skills that I now have, that I'm able to work with people in high level jobs and universities and many different people and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, there was so much in that, and I'm just thinking of where to start. I mean, probably go back, one of the things I picked out was this being told while you were a student or when you were a bit younger that only 2% of you would make it. But what made you continue even when you heard that? Because I remember listening to a former apprentice, and we were fortunate to have obviously, the Lord Sugar show at The Apprentice.
Yes, The Apprentice.
I actually applied for the very first show. It's a little secret. Yeah, I applied for the very first one. I obviously didn't get through, but I think Tim actually won that. Tim Campbell, who's actually now his assistant.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I think he was in that first show. But anyway, we had an apprentice come to Goldsmiths, and she was incredible. Somani Swindles, you might have heard of her. She runs a boxing gym in South East London. And incredible story. But one of the things she said about confidence, again, as a businesswoman coming through the ranks, I think she came from up north as well to London to study. She studied at Goldsmiths, and she said she had this thing called, what she called, I've never heard it before in that context anyway, delusional confidence.
Interesting.
And I just wondered if that was what was going through your mind, because when someone says only 2% of you are going to make it, but yet you still felt, okay, regardless of what you've just been told. And so when she said a delusion, I don't know what the students felt at that time, but I think there's a little bit of that sometimes. We have to be a little bit delusional in terms of believing, because, I just said I work in financial markets, and one of the things about financial markets that I learned was that there's a lot of noise out there. And as a savvy investor, you have to know how to block the noise. And it sounds to me that's kind of what you've done. You've said yes to a lot of things, but then maybe a little bit of delusion, but you went for it. And I just wondered if that's what was going on.
Yeah, you just remind me of a time I was doing, when I was living in Manchester, I was getting work as an actor, and I was also very much involved in the fringe theatre scene, which was so vibrant at the time. And as an actor in your 20s, there were so many of us. We were writing plays, we were putting them on, we were going to support each other. Festivals sprang up out of that. And it was an amazing time to be an actor in Manchester. But I remember my brother, who's a very savvy businessman, he's done very, very well. And I had very little business acumen at that time. I have to say, I was following my heart, I was following my passions, my instincts. And he said, well, how much are you getting paid for that Fringe Theatre show? And I was like, well, I might get £50 if I'm lucky, and he's like, well, you keep doing that. People are just going to see you doing that. And you'll just get more of that. You'll never get out of that. And it was a really key moment for me where I thought, he's probably right. And at some point I need to kind of think about not just following a dream, but how do I make a business out of this? And I think that's true for anyone, whatever they're doing. It is nice to go along with the flow and to have these wonderful experiences. But at some point you do have to kind of sit yourself down and think, what is the strategy behind this? And I think that's something that I've learned a lot later on in life, where I'm realizing even when I started my own business, I was still being kind of very organic. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, now I need to get strategic and I need to understand business.
And by the way, you are famous. You're on CSEP Media Studios with Des and the crew.
Finally
You're famous.
made it.
You're famous.
Thank you.
We're all famous. Yeah. We're in the studio. We're in the place. Yeah. So, and then you said something else. You said something about one of the challenges that young people actually had as a challenge, because we've all been there as public speakers. We all do that in our realm of work. You mentioned stage fright. But that students have. And another thing is, and actually the question I would like to find out from you, Kate, is what would you say are the top 3 challenges that people have when it comes to speaking and presenting?
Yeah, I just want to answer another question because I think it's quite key. When I finished drama school, I came out and I retreated to my dad's because I suddenly felt really scared. And I was like, I was watching my friends go up for auditions and getting agents and really going for it. And I just thought, I don't think I'm ready. I thought I need to get some more skills first and I'm not confident enough to do this. And so I said no. I said no to some very big opportunities that were coming my way at the time as well that I regret now. And I think confidence is a really key thing to understand, that we're not necessarily born with loads of confidence. Confidence is something that is created through action and through experience. I think we can probably all agree with that. And so that kind of blind faith thing, that kind of like feel the fear and do it anyway, has been something that I've really adopted. And I think that's the same getting on stage. It's very scary to go on stage for most people, especially for the first time. It's scary to do a job interview. Yeah. Especially early on when you haven't done many of them yet. So it really is about saying yes to it anyway, accepting that you're going to have some bodily, you're going to have the shakes, your voice might go dry, all of these things, but it's just about trying to keep the faith, slowing down and continuing it and getting through it, and starting to let your subconscious know that you didn't die, it was okay. Maybe there's things you could have done better, and let's think about what that could be and how you might do that differently next time. And then get yourself back to the stage, because the more that you do it, the better you're going to become. I mean, I was really scared of acting. I was really scared of being on stage. Wow. I was very nervous. I used to do performance poetry. I didn't want to get up there. I'd shake. And then someone would say to me, your poetry is so brilliant. Please go and share it. And it was that got me to the stage again and again. And only after doing it, I would say probably about 50 times, maybe 100, did I start to feel like I feel comfortable. I feel at home.
It's incredible because, I've run some workshops at the university on public speaking, nowhere up to your level standard, but I've tried, and because it's something that I'm passionate about, and I'll get to share my story as we expand and deliver more episodes of the Confident Career Show.
If I may, I just want to go back a bit with you mentioned something about how with your story you kept moving. Even when you desire to get to the as an actor, but whilst you were waiting for that big break, you ended up as a teacher. You did a lot of other things, right? we have lots of people now looking for jobs, right? But they're looking for a particular type of job, a particular kind of job. They keep applying for those kind of jobs and they are not getting it.
Yeah.
Would you say or advise them to look for other opportunities whilst they are looking for that big break, so that they keep moving, like keeping the momentum?
Yeah.
That's what I got from your story.
Yeah,
You kept moving.
I mean, I think I had a client and he said he got a job in Audi. He wanted to be a senior, an engineer, and he wasn't getting anything. This is about 10, 15 years ago. And so he got a job in Audi just so that he still felt confident in himself and he was still bringing money in and he was out there. And actually he ended up meeting someone there that said, I've got a friend who's in that area. Do you want to meet with them? Go and have a coffee with them. And that was the start of him getting into engineering. And he's now, he's senior level in that now. But I think it is about being open to conversations with strangers sometimes. You never know who you're going to meet. And also it shows willing. When someone looks at your CV at that right moment where you've got it, it's like, well, what have you been doing for the last 2 years? Oh, I was kind of sat at home waiting for the phone to ring. It doesn't sound great. I think it's okay to say, well, I did this job because that's all there was. But actually what I learned from this job was teamwork, or I built my confidence, or I did something in that job I never thought I'd do. There were so many jobs where I had to, I was a theatre producer at one point. I was putting on my plays and I had to learn about advertising and sales. And I took a show to Edinburgh and, my most of my audience were about 5 people. And it was heartbreaking, but I learned so much about what not to do about sales and psychology and how people work.
Yeah.
So I think any job that you ever do, you're going to learn something, even if you don't think it's exactly what you think you should be learning. It all feeds in. And I would say as well, from the people that I work with, a lot of people come to me and they say, I've got imposter syndrome. These are people at the top, they've been in their career for 20 years. I've got imposter syndrome because I didn't study this subject. And then I say, okay, so what did you do? Let's go back through your journey. And they're like, oh, I did this job and then I did that and I learned this here and all of those things are what makes them unique in the role that they're doing. So actually, in some ways, they have more to bring to that role than someone who just studied it and learned all the things that everybody else knows about that role.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, Joseph, thank you so much for that. I mean, actually, there's something that Joseph said, and I just want to come back to it because he talked about, so if someone's aiming for this big break, what they should do in the meantime. And you talked about someone who went from working at Audi to then working in engineering and is now in senior position.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like, I think, with the fear of public speaking, which I believe the official name is glossophobia.
Glossophobia, yes.
Glossophobia,
yeah.
Which I believe is it 7 in 10 people have a fear of.
It's about 70%,
70% or more. And isn't there a fear, also when we bring it back to the career situation, the fear of actually having that conversation like you talked about, the fear of actually not actually doing something that's not or doesn't seem traditional? Because one of the things we have discussions about in the team, obviously I'm working in a career service, as you know, at the university I work at, and we talk about, okay, there's a lot of anxiety among students in terms of applying for jobs, because that's what they do. That's what we all do. We've all done it, applying for jobs online. We go to a job board. That's what we meant to do, right? And then when you suddenly find, actually, this is not actually working, and then you're talking about having a conversation with someone in Audi, and I'm thinking, why do I have to do that? I've studied so hard. Why do I have to have a conversation to get a job? So I think there's that fear, and I just wonder how we can tackle that, because I think some of that fear is also partly what hinders people when it even comes to things like public speaking, because a lot of the things you were talking about in terms of just doing it anyway, I think that takes a little bit, or takes quite a bit actually, from this whole idea of the mindset, the growth mindset.
Yeah.
With the idea of the growth mindset, about the growth mindset by Professor Carol Dweck from Stanford University. She talks about the idea is, failure is feedback.
Yeah.
It's feedback.
My gosh.
So
how many times do we fail? How many times have all of us failed?
Absolutely. It's feedback.
And I've learned so
Redirection.
much. Yeah. And that's where you learn. I think that expectation that we have to be brilliant from the beginning, that we have to succeed at everything, that life should be this perfect thing is not helping us, because it really isn't. Life is a bit messy and it's difficult sometimes. And we're not going to be brilliant first time at everything. But if we give up at that point, then we'll never get any better.
Yeah. So, and I just wondered if you can elaborate a bit more on that, Kate, in terms of how do you get over that fear perhaps maybe talk about it from a public speaking point of view, or obviously your expertise in public speaking, but in terms of careers as well, because I wonder that person, I'm trying to put my shoes in a student coming out of university. My son just recently graduated from university, so it's something that's quite close to home as well, and I can see the challenges, and obviously he's got even someone like myself to help him, but the challenges are still there, the anxieties are still there. Asking them to have this conversation with people about looking for work is a bit alien to them, because they don't feel they have to. I think they feel, well, I'll just apply for the way you do it is you apply for a job,
and I should just apply and get it.
Yeah. So there's that fear, and I think that also exists. So how do you deal with that fear? How do you deal with the fear of public speaking?
Gosh,
I think
it's a really hard one. It's very psychological, the fear, and it's sometimes we don't realize that there's little voices in our head, and they put us down. They go, oh, don't do that because you'll embarrass yourself, or don't do that because you'll look stupid to that person. And or you're not good enough is another big one that I think a lot of people come up against. And it's actually sometimes you've got to take those thoughts to court, and you've got to question them and say, well, what if I tried? What if I did ask that question? What if I did speak to that person? Like, what have you got to lose? If you are sending off loads of CVs and no one's taking much notice, then what have you got to lose to actually get out there in the world and have conversations and make connections with people who are actually going to see you and feel your energy and your passion for something and your drive and want to help. So I think it's like really catching those negative thoughts that you may have about it and trying to just question them a little bit to overcome it. And the other thing obviously is social media.
Yeah.
Put your camera on, do a little piece to camera. Even no one has to see it. You can do that like 5-10 times, practice it until you feel like, actually, I think I will put this post out. Because it's about how are you going to stand out of the crowd when everybody's just sending off CVs and everybody's just got very similar things. How are you going to stand out? Because employers also will go and look at your socials.
Absolutely.
They will look at your LinkedIn, and sometimes I work with students at university and I say, right, let's go to your LinkedIn. And they've got nothing on that. I'm like, where's your picture? It's just, how are you going to stand out if you've got nothing different from what the next person has got? So I think social media is brilliant. We all use it. We are all using it in industry and in our professions. And the young people know better than anyone how to use it.
Absolutely. They're better than us, better than certainly me. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're doing well with time, and so maybe a couple of questions. Joseph, do you have anything you want to add?
No, just to add that, like the question you were asking, even my own experience with my background, being in social psychology and now working in frontline social care, it's still very related. But someone will say that, okay, I'm highly qualified and I'm working in social care. So it's sometimes like Kate was saying, it's not linear. The career path is not linear. So you end up there will be a lot of meanders, and you should be flexible to maybe embrace some of these meanders to get to that destination that you want to get to.
Absolutely, and I think certainly the world we're living in now it's very much non-linear. I don't know if you heard of this acronym. It's quite scary, actually. I don't know if I should just say it. Have you heard of the Barney World?
No.
Yeah, the Barney World. Okay, you haven't heard of the Barney World. So it used to be called VUCA, which apparently lends itself back to military days in the 70s in the US. So now it's the Barney World. The Barney World is actually a concept that came up, that was brought up by a guy called Jermaine Cassio. I think I don't know if I pronounced that right, but he's a futurist. He's an American futurist based in California. And he came up with this idea of the Barney World. The Barney stands for, the B is the brittleness about our society. The A is the ambiguity, the doubt.
Okay.
The N is the non-linear, like you're just saying, Joseph. And then the I is the, I think I remember, it says incomprehensible. And when you look at it, the world does sometimes feel like I can't make sense of it, incomprehensible.
Yeah.
So and actually it's a well-adopted framework, the Barney World. So if you look it up, a friend of mine actually wrote a book about it, and mainly he focused on VUCA. And yeah, the Barney World is an interesting, but what then when I say it's interesting to know that, okay, how do you then deal with this Barney world? The things that they talk about in addressing the Barney world and thriving in the Barney world are the things we've just been talking about, Kate and Joseph. They talk about the fact that we need to be more flexible.
Yeah.
We need to be more adaptable. We need to be more we need to be more empathetic.
Yeah.
We need to be more collaborative. That's how you thrive in the Barney world, apparently. So again, it's all those things that you just talked about in your story, and just doing it, asking questions, adapting, all of that stuff. Going through this non-linear sort of up and down sort of thing. Yeah, because it does sometimes feel that way. So interesting. So okay, I have maybe a couple more questions, and then we're gonna bring this to a close, and I hope it's not going to be the last time we see you on this show. Certainly we're going to bring you back at some point again in the future, but I'm so grateful to having you as our first guest.
Thank you.
It's amazing. So we are excited to have you in our studio here. So the question I have for you was just in terms of advice you would give, actually advice around public speaking, because I think I was listening to someone recently and they were talking about the importance of communication.
Yeah.
It's so important, communication skills. And I mean, there's lots of people out there now talking about this subject, I'm sure you know. But when it comes to presenting, think about interviews. If you're going for a job interview, that's often what differentiates. You can have two people with the same qualifications, gone to the same school, whatever.
Yeah.
It's the communication.
Yeah.
How are they able to communicate their value?
I think what's brilliant about public speaking is that you have a platform to be seen and heard, and although that's very scary for a lot of people, once you can get over that, that's what it is. It's a platform where people will take a moment to see you and to listen to you, and it's good to kind of think about bringing your passion to it, bringing your personality to it. Bringing positivity as well, I think, and also some of your own stories and your experiences. So in an interview, it's always good to kind of really prepare. Do think about what questions am I going to get? How am I going to stand out with this question? How am I going to talk about some of my own experiences in a similar role? Or how am I going to talk about a job I've done where it expresses your passion for that role or your passion for teamwork or something like that? I want to be more helpful here.
Yeah.
Just to add to it, I mean, just like you're saying, Kate, we all have value. We all have something to offer, and nobody's going to employ you for just employment's sake. So when you come, before you go for that interview, you definitely need to sit down and ask yourself, what's the employer going to benefit from having me as part of their team? And so when you are able to come up with the value that you're going to add, you're able to come up with, I think I have this, I have that, I have so and so, and I can contribute to that company in that sense.
Yes.
When you get there, you're so confident to communicate because this is what I know I can contribute. And if you're not going to give me the job because you don't like what I'm bringing to the table, then that's your loss. I'll be valuable somewhere else. So I think that kind of perspective or understanding of your value, like what you have and what you bring into the table, has a lot to do with
and absolutely. And it's not arrogance. It's a self-belief, and it's also a belief that the right jobs will find you, and sometimes you're not right for those jobs and someone else is right for that job, but that means there's another job somewhere else that is right for you with your name on it. And it takes me back to my early days auditioning and acting, and you'd go in and sometimes I'd audition for commercials and you'd be in a room of 15 other girls that looked like me, maybe some were blonde, some had darker hair, skinny, whatever, and you'd kind of start to compare yourself, and I think that's kind of suicide in a way when you start comparing yourself to other people, or even when you go into an interview or on stage and think, I've got to be like someone else, or I've got to do it in the way that they do it. Find people that you admire and think, what qualities have they got? What can I bring some of those out for myself? But really, and this is the thing I think it comes down to, is people by people. And in that interview is your opportunity to bring yourself into that room or onto that stage, for people to really see who you are, connect with you, and think, this is someone, I think they've got a spark. They might not have the experience that the last person had, but this person's got a spark, and I like the way that they're communicating with me, and I feel, there's a connection happening.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think the whole idea, I come from a sales background, and the whole thing about sales and business, they used to say people buy, is it based on 10% logic, 90% emotional?
Yeah.
So again, that spark, that connection. And you went on to talk about the not comparing ourselves. We all do it, really, in some shape or form. And my daughter would say, oh, Daddy says you shouldn't be talking about comparing.
But I think with comparing, like you were saying, Joe, like it's about our values. So when we start comparing ourselves to other people, we don't notice the value that we have. We're actually just looking in the wrong direction. When we really should be looking, what are my qualities? What can I bring here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thanks for coming in there. I had a quote from a very good friend of mine. We grew up together in Lagos, Nigeria, where I was born here but lived in Nigeria for quite some time. And you probably, I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I lived there for about 10 years. So I even speak the local language. This guy, we grew up together. He was like my best friend growing up. And he said something. He's a medical doctor. He's a kidney specialist. And he's based in America, incredibly smart. And he said, don't compare yourself, prepare yourself.
Great. I think that
don't
sums it
compare
up.
yourself, prepare yourself. And this is a guy who's at the top of his profession. And I've always tried to listen to that tenet and to advise students. I've actually had his pictures shown to my students as well. And everyone probably knows him at the university now, because he is just an incredibly inspiring person. And and I think that tenet of about preparation, and you think someone that clever is still talking about preparation, because he's the kind of person that would just turn up to an exam and still get A stars, but he's still talking about preparation. And there are some people like that, and so it's not about comparison, it is about preparation. Sure. And I think if it's public speaking, the question I have for you as we get to the end of this, how much preparation goes into, let's say we've got a speaking gig tomorrow, and what do I do? What are the 3 things you would say I should do to help to give me make my speaking presentation absolutely amazing?
Okay, so first think about the audience. What is it who's in the audience? What are they going to need to hear? What's going to be the most interest to them? Because if you've got university audience, is completely different than if you're talking to senior execs. So we're always thinking about what's their interest, what do they want, and then think about 1 or 2 stories that you have that are going to make that point without you having to just say the point, because that doesn't always land as well with your audience. And I did for this podcast, I asked you for some questions. If you get the opportunity to ask, are there any questions for me, or what kind of areas are they most interested in? And then just make some rough notes for yourself. What can I say about that? What's the piece of gold that I can give in that? Because everybody in the audience is going to be at different levels often. Some people will be like, I know all this already, but there will always be one thing that you say that stands out to them. And if most people can just take one piece of gold away from coming to a speaking gig, they'll be happy. They'll be happy with that. So, and the final thing is visualization. And I love visualization.
Love that. Yeah.
So I think always visualize yourself up there doing really well, looking really confident, being really passionate, feeling really excited.
Would I ask you a question, because we've all public speak, you've heard of this concept of resource anchoring, where you're anchoring to something, like a ship anchors to the deck.
Yeah.
So the idea is where you're thinking of something positive before you go on stage.
Oh,
is that the same as visualization? So you're visualizing. So how would you describe? You essentially, when you say visual, because for me, I think that's so important. Visualization, because I always say, if you're going to talk in front of even if it's a small group of people, you can't be thinking negative. It's like going to an interview and saying to yourself, I'm not going to get this job. Because I've heard people say that. I've had people say, I'm not going to get this job. And I said, you've got to stop saying that. So that visualization.
And also our words are so powerful. I don't know, you've probably heard this said so many times, whatever you say to yourself, and definitely out loud, like, you know, even like, oh, it's going to be a terrible week. It's like, okay, well, you're going to have a terrible week, like, or you're going to have to fight against that now. So even saying to yourself, I've got so much to offer this audience. I can't wait to share my knowledge with them. I'm really looking forward to who I'm going to meet through this. If you can just say it out loud, change those negatives into positives, and it changes our mind, and our mind changes our body. Absolutely. So our body will start to relax then as well. Yeah. If you notice limiting beliefs and negative thoughts, our body will mirror what we're thinking, and we'll start to close up, we'll start to get small. And then it's really hard to be on a stage and be big and communicate when our body is being really small and really tense. Yeah. And our voice is going to struggle with that as well.
Yeah.
So it is a lot about mind-body connection and what we say to ourselves.
Mind-body connection. That is powerful. Powerful. Joseph, do you want any last-minute
mind-body connection? I think.
I love that. I love that. I mean,
it's powerful.
You know, Kate, we have to have you back at some point.
Thank you.
I think, and we are so fortunate to have had you as our first guest. And I don't know if there's any last few words you might want to share with our audience.
Yeah, I suppose the last one is just to trust that there is a process. I believe there's a process and there's a path for everyone, and we can't always know exactly what it is. So it's good to have a goal, but then just be open to what turns up on that path along the way, and throw positivity at life, I think, as well, as much as you can, because it's not always easy.
Absolutely. And I will allow you, I think we can do that. Plug of yourself. I mean, if people want to contact you and get advice, I know you're on LinkedIn, but how can people contact you?
Yes, so I also run a monthly networking group in Crystal Palace, and it's on this Thursday. We do it the last Thursday of every month.
Is that women only? Or
no, that's everyone, entrepreneurs, business owners, and that's at the Paxton Centre in Crystal Palace from 10:30 in the morning. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm Kate Gilbert, public speaking coach and speaker. I'm also on Instagram, kategilbert.talks. You can follow me there. I run courses and workshops. So you can go to my website as well, kategilbert.co.uk, to see what I'm doing, or send me an email.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We're delighted to have Kate, and I would like to close there. Joseph, last few words.
I think, guys, you're in for a treat. So make sure you subscribe to our channels, and we've got a lot coming in for you. So stay glued.
Absolutely. Stay tuned, stay glued, and we're excited about this journey we're going to be taking. And see you on the next episode.
Cheers.